Hi, in this video we'll talk about sewing machine needles. A sewing machine needle may look simple to you, but there's a whole world of technique behind a little needle. Different kinds of fabric require different needles, so almost for every type of fabric there is a specific needle. The shape of the tip, the point, the size of the eye and the shape of the eye, the thickness of the shaft, they all determine whether your needle will pierce through the fabric smoothly or not. And you don't want your needle to make big holes in your fabric, so they have to be as small as possible, but the needle still has to be strong enough to pierce through the fabric without bending. If your needle is not the right size or not the right shape, it can cause skipped stitches, so you don't want that. When choosing a needle, always start with the type and then go over to the size of needle. So we'll talk about needle types first. I will go over 7 different needle types with you, and of course the first one is the universal needle. Universal needles can be used for different kinds of fabrics, and if you just want to buy one type of needles, then go with the universal ones. They won't be perfect for every type of fabric, but test on a scrap, and if the result is okay for you, just go for it. Then there is the MICROTEX needle. A MICROTEX needle is very thin, has a very sharp and acute point that can be used for fragile fabrics like silk, organza. You can use it for microfiber fabrics, for artificial leather and coated materials. The point is so thin that it breaks easily, so you have to be very careful with these needles. Then the third one are ballpoint needles. Ballpoint needles are used for knit and jersey fabrics. They have a ballpoint tip, and the tip will make sure that the fibers in the knit fabrics are not damaged by the needle. The fourth type of needle are stretch needles. They can be used for stretch fabrics, synthetics and elastics. They have a specific scarf and a special eye, and the tip is medium rounded, and this makes sure that it pierces the fabrics in a way that you don't end up with skipped stitches. Then we have denim needles or jeans needles. Denim is a very tightly woven fabric, so you need a very sturdy needle. So denim needles have a reinforced blade and they have a sharp tip to pierce the fabric. The size of the needle that you will be using, we'll get to that later, depends on the type of thread you are using to sew your denim. And because of the sharp tip, you can also use this needle for thicker imitation leather if you want. Then we have serger needles for a serger or an overlocker machine. They are very specific very often. For some brands you can use household sewing machine needles, but do check before you use them on your machine. You have to replace serger needles more frequently because a serger sews faster than a household sewing machine, and sometimes the needles have like a shaft on the front and on the back side, so be sure to check your manual. And the last one is an embroidery needle. An embroidery needle has a bigger eye and has also a bigger groove, because with embroidery it's important that the needle can pass, that the thread can pass through the needle smoothly without friction, and that the needle can move in different directions. And then we go over to the size of the needle. So for each type you can have different sizes. This can be a bit confusing because there are two labeling systems. You have a European one and an American labeling system. The American system goes from 6 to 19, 6 being the most thin needle and 19 the heaviest one. And then in European sizes, they go from 60 to 120. And 60 the thinnest size and 120 the heaviest one. So either way, the higher the number, the thicker the needle. So choosing a needle size depends on the thickness of your thread and your fabric. So the thinner the fabric and the thread, the thinner the needle. If you're working with a heavy, sturdy fabric and a thicker thread, you will need a bigger sized needle. So delicate fabrics like silk and chiffon will need a 9. Medium lightweight like taffeta can be sewn with 11. Then medium weight fabrics like cotton or poplin can be sewn with a size 14. And if you're sewing with medium heavy fabric like a thick wool, I would use a 16, and then for a sturdy denim you could use an 18. So you can start each new project with a new needle if you want to be sure. If you really want to be careful and take no risks, that is just the best option. In general, you can sew like 8 hours with the same needle before it becomes dull, and you can tell when a needle is worn out if your machine starts to make a funny noise or if you get skipped stitches. Of course, you have to change it when the needle is damaged or broken, but a lot of issues with a machine, or if you get bird nests or whatever, are due to a bad needle. So if you're not sure what is happening, change your needle. So when you're sewing with different materials and you are changing the needle very often, like just for 15 minutes, and you don't want to throw a needle away, I always found it hard like to know, oh, what kind of needle was this? The writing on the needles is very, very small, and you don't always see the size and the type. And some needles have like color markings, which is practical because then you don't have to figure out what is written on the needle. But because a lot of people struggle with this, we thought of a easy little solution, and we made this pincushion, a needle cushion. We call it a needle sorting pincushion, and we have different, like, more common sizes and the different types I just talked about in this video. And if you're taking a needle off the machine, this one is a jeans needle, so denim, and it is a 90. I just put it in the pincushion, and when I start using it, I just put the yellow pin in this, and I know if I'm changing my needle again that I can just mark the needle that I'm using with this yellow pin. How do you keep your needles organized? Do you have a good way of organizing your needles so you know the types and the sizes and how much time you used them already? This was my little overview about sewing machine needles. We have a blog post on our website with more details and with a nice overview and little tables. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. And I know there is much more to tell about needles, but I didn't want to overwhelm you, so I kind of kept to the basics. Hope this helped. Bye.